Hi, today I want to do a different video than the usual ones. Not about travel, not about reviews. I want to make a video about some of the thoughts I've been making recently at work. And today I want to talk about leadership. And I want to talk about the philosophy of leadership, the principles that I follow at work to lead people, teams, or projects. I recently attended a training where I was required to put on paper what my leadership philosophy is. And so I want to share with you 5 things that worked for me and that I work and I operate by, that hopefully you can find useful, or maybe not. Maybe you want to share your own opinions in the comments and you want to tell me what you think. But without further ado, let's dive into my 5 principles. Number 1, fast is better than slow. I think that this is essential to transform thoughts, projects into action and impact. And I found that this really creates a reputation for being able to make things happen and for creating an impact and driving change. This does not mean that the outcome needs to be rushed. It means that you obviously need to factor what is important and what is the minimum viable product that you should deliver in a time-sensitive matter, and then start executing and deliver by those principles. You can always refine later, but getting to market fast is super important, especially in nowadays world where technology goes fast, people react fast to things and news. As an example, see in successful social campaigns where companies reacted very quickly to a social media post of a normal person, and they used that post successfully for their own benefit, for their brand benefit, because somebody was able to execute fast on that idea and bring it to market. Recently there was a bottle that didn't catch fire inside of in a car that actually caught fire, and a woman was surprised about this water bottle being still safe with the ice in the liquid inside her burned car, and she posted it on social media. The company making that bottle immediately used that post and quickly turned it into a marketing campaign for themselves. This is something that you can do when you act fast. The same can happen in moments of challenge, when you need to deliver something to fix a situation. Understand your non-negotiable, the non-negotiables of the minimum viable product or the minimum viable solution, and then start executing now. The second one, which arguably could also be number 1, is being user experience obsessed. When I say user experience, I should specify, I don't only mean the user experience that we strictly intend on a specific app, but the user experience that we intend to deliver when we deliver a service, when we deliver something to somebody. This can happen at a bakery. This could happen as a customer support. This could happen with your product. You need to understand what your customers want and how they want to experience that. This makes a big difference in the long-term success of your project or of your company. Your customers can also be internal customers, can be customers internally in your company that need to use your project, your product, or your solution. Always put yourself in the feet of the customer, empathize with them, be detail-oriented, be obsessed with every aspect of the user. If we're talking about a product, you need to run a lot of studies to understand how users really, take advantage of your product, which buttons they push, how they handle your product, where they leave their product. Think about your phone. Some phones are slippery. Some phones are perfectly firm on whatever surface you put them. That comes from user testing. That comes from user experience. But let's talk about services. There are some places that are perfectly optimized, like restaurants or bakeries, and some others where no matter what time you get in there, you still wait half an hour to get your croissant and your cappuccino. This happens to me every weekend. And clearly, nobody ever stood on the side of the customer and did the same exact experience that the customer will do, to enter the bakery, line up somewhere, have a chance to look at what they can buy, then get to the cash register, place their order and pay, and then go to the table and wait and expect to receive what they order in a reasonable amount of time. If they had done that, they would have seen all the flaws of their process, and they would lost less customers and made more business. So be always UX centric, user experience centric. And I would add to this that sometimes user experience can trump processes. We all been there. We call a customer support number and we get stuck in processes that don't make any sense because the operator will follow them step by step without applying some common sense and understanding the specific situation. So the benefit of the customer, their experience should trump some of the well-established processes. In fact, I think that should inform an iterative process of improving the user experience. So that's who's paying your salary. Make sure that you are UX obsessed so that you can make sure that people will love your product, your service, your deliverable. And if you're in the context of leadership, make sure that your team operates being customer obsessed. When you are talking to them, when you're having your one-to-ones, if there is a question about a process, if there is a question about a problem that came up, always take a step back and make sure you take some time to bring your team or your team member in the shoes of the customer and use that as a way of solving the problem that you're facing, and also to explain how things, could be improved and could be solved. The third principle is don't take yourself too seriously. Now, compared to the first two, you might think that this is a bit of a soft principle. The first two go fast, so fast is better than slow, and be UX obsessed. We're very process specific. This one can seem soft. In reality, I think it's extremely, extremely important because work and impact and motivation and leadership are not just about a very well-oiled machine, but they're also about the motivation and the spirit that you bring at work. And I've seen situations where work groups leadership is extremely intense, it's extremely serious, and everybody's operating as if they're saving lives. Now, of course, if you're a surgeon and you're really saving lives, I'm pretty sure you should take yourself very seriously, and your team should take everybody and every process very seriously. But in all of the contexts that are not life-threatening, I think it's important to balance some, confidence and some discipline with also the ability to be more ironic, bring some laughs in, making sure that the heavy day is a bit lighter for the people you work with. And I think that, not taking yourself too seriously really helps that, because it also creates some sort of respect and, creates the vibe for being able to expose yourself to maybe a joke or maybe a fun comment about yourself. Or maybe you can also go to a member of your team that is having a bad day and frame this in a less serious matter, like bringing more context and understanding how even problems at work, are just a small part of everything else that happens in a lifetime or during your career. So really, there is most of the time to catch up with problems and time to solve situations. Don't take yourself too seriously unless you're saving lives. Really, an intense workplace doesn't really benefit many people. It's better to create a better atmosphere and, be the person that people want to work with, be the person that people want to meet, be the person that people want to take advice from and want to go to when they're having a bad time. That will really create some safety and will create the opportunity for growth and also for better communication within a team. Honesty. Honesty is another important principle, in my opinion. I think that honesty creates trust. There is nothing more confusing than people that are not honest and that cannot speak their truth, that cannot deliver the feedback that they would like to deliver, and that they don't really say what they mean. We all had that boss that was, kind of afraid of giving you the real truth and the honest truth. And that's not helpful for your development, for the team development, for the business development. So honesty is extremely important. And I think it creates, again, it's another factor that creates an element of trust. It solidifies a team around, a shared belief that we are in this to grow together and to make an impact, and that we will allow ourselves to express our opinion, our feedback, because there is an understanding that that feedback is geared towards improvement and growth. And that creates a positive cycle of improving and on growth. Finally, number 5, you might have guessed this from how I position these leadership philosophies. Work is not all that there is. And again, this builds up on not taking yourself too seriously, being honest. There is so much more in life. And I think that you have personal interests in reading about business. Maybe you can have a personal interest in reading about your industry, but still, that's your personal interest. The job, what you do in the office with all its achievements or issues, it's only a part of your life. Once you're out of the office, don't check your emails, don't check your work chats. That will not help you disconnect. If you are constantly checking, if you're constantly on the go, your mind will not be able to rest, will not be able to allow you to see things in perspective, detach, recharge, and go back to the office the day after, refreshed, recharged, maybe with a different perspective and angle. Being always on will make you go on autopilot and will also hamper your ability to take a step back and say, I've been doing things this way and I've been approaching this problem this way because that's how I started it and that's how I continued. But, taking that walk the other day when I was disconnected made me think that maybe there is another way of doing this specific thing. And tomorrow I'm going to go to the office and implement this change in the way I work. That can only happen from detachment and from enjoying the rest of life that there is beyond the 5 working weeks and during your working hours. You should be efficient for this. Of course, you cannot postpone all your deliverables during the day. You should minimize postponing. You should save time for things, and you should get things done and prioritize. And then once you've done all of that and you're delivered, detach. Enjoy your mind, enjoy your life, enjoy your friends. All of these will benefit from you detaching. Defend your boundaries outside of the work. Now, I promise you 5 principles. These are the ones that came to my mind as I wrote this. There might be others that I'm forgetting. I want to hear your comments, but I also want to give you other 3 things that came to my mind as I was doing this exercise. I wouldn't call them necessarily principles because for me they are negotiable. I think these are elements that I usually like to lead with, but that I'm also always willing to compromise and adapt. In fact, I think that one of the qualities of a leader is that of adapting to a specific person, a specific situation, a different working style. So if you wish, these 3 elements are part of my working style, of my preferences as a working style that work for me, but that I also know that need to be tweaked sometimes depending on who you're working with. So I will give you these 3 with this caveat. Number 1, expressing emotions. I think that this comes very close with honesty builds trust, which was one of the principles I expressed before. I think that emotions are a part of the human nature, and I think you should bring yourself to work. I think Emotions sometimes can prove what you're saying, can support what you're saying, can add a little bit more of credibility with what you're to what you're saying. But my perspective is a perspective of a person who grew up European, grew up in a very outspoken culture, in a very outspoken country, and still there are people who do not necessarily appreciate that, and they want this to be a bit more controlled, a bit more tuned down, or sometimes they prefer communication to be non-emotional. This can also happen when you interact with more senior stakeholders or stakeholders you don't particularly know or that you don't know very well. So expressing emotions, in my opinion, can help you create more honesty, more trust, more authenticity, but at the same time is something that you want to tweak and you want to manage. So it's not really a principle, is a preference that needs to be watched out and adapted. Number 2, related to this, is explicit communication. You can communicate without emotions, but still there is a way of explicitly communicating and having a certain radical candor and a way of tuning it down a notch. You will need to adapt this to the person you are talking to. Personally, I'm very explicit when I communicate, and I like to avoid misunderstanding, and I like to specifically explain with the situation, behavior, and impact model. I like to be very specific and very clear about the feedback that I'm delivering. But sometimes, you might spend more time setting the context. You might spend some time adding more empathy in your communication, and you might want to add more check-ins in the delivery of these so that the communication can land properly. And even if you're doing it trying to moderate emotions, you are also checking if the other person is having emotions, and you're preventing negative emotions or particular emotions to be triggered. So over here, you are adjusting the content of your communication to make sure that the other person is put in the best position possible to receive that. And finally, linear thinking. Linear thinking is my preference. I tend to break problems and thoughts down in a very specific flow in pretty much everything that I approach in my life. Is this the perfect recipe? Absolutely not. We always hear the fact that sometimes you need to trust your guts. Sometimes you need to trust your instinct. Most of the times your guts and instinct will probably not be linear, will not fit into a perfect flow. So this is maybe an element where I encourage you as leaders to rely on your team, challenge your beliefs, challenge your linear thinking. And that's why I put it as one of my preferences, but again, one of the things that I can adapt. I think it's a great opportunity, to go out there and say, this is my thinking, this is how I think we should approach that. But I don't know if we're, being over prescriptive, if we're leaving some of the elements of the problem out, if we're not considering all the necessary perspective, and if we're not maybe considering that the problem we're trying to adjust or fix is non-linear. And this will happen many times when there is more than just a simple internal process involved. This can happen with people processes. This can happen with people problem. But if you think about that, when you're trying to sell a product, when you're trying to make a company successful, at the end of the day, you need to capture the consumer. And the consumer is a person. So even though you're linear in your strategy and in your thinking, even in your go-to-market, you need to be able to factor in something that is non-linear and that is adaptable. And I don't know if you see this, but as I'm explaining this, I see a circle going back to being UX obsessed and being fast. Because in a way, you can introduce this element to alter your linear thinking by introducing more, customer obsessed points, and by reacting fast to changing conditions and to changing environments. So there you have it. These are my 5 principles and then my 3 preferences for leading teams, projects, and situations at work in general. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. Let me know what I might have missed, and let me know where you disagree with. I think this is a very interesting topic to debate and to chat about. And on the other hand, if you just like these tips and you're gonna try and apply them in your workplace, let me know how this works for you and if you're finding it successful. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this different video, even if I wasn't talking about gadgets or vacations or travels. Thank you.